Good morning and welcome to Rise and Shine Sundays. I'm your host, Jamie Rich, and I am delighted that you can be with us for a discussion. One of the things that we do every Sunday mornings is gather a group of people, yourself included, if you're watching this on the Breakthrough Show Network or wherever you may be watching this program, to be part of a conversation around a particular topic. None of us are experts. The whole purpose of this conversation is to focus on the collective wisdom that emerges around a particular topic. This morning, our conversation happens to be on your screen. It's a topic called, are your survival strategies still serving you? And I know that there's a lot of those words in there that are like, well, okay, survival strategies, serving, still serving you. There's a lot to contemplate this morning about this particular topic. But as someone who is of a considerable age, I will tell you that one of the things that has happened in my own life is recognizing that sometimes I'm running patterns and behaviors that were formed a long time ago about a version of myself which may or may not still be operating. So it's almost as if we are sort of like running old software, meeting new situations, and responding to them in ways that, well, wait, is this really the way that I need to be responding? Or, I realize where I picked that strategy up years ago, but what we're inviting you to look at this morning is an opportunity to just really have an open conversation of looking at some of the ways that you've established beliefs about yourself and patterns that were there for a very good reason at one time, but maybe need to be re examined. And so joining me in the room to re examine is an assemblage of folks from around the world, literally this morning. So I will say, good morning. Good morning to everyone.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning, bonjour au grand
Buenos
monde.
dias.
Please, anyone, respond in a language of your choice.
Bonjour, bonjour, sac passé.
So, normally in this time in Rise and Shine Sundays, we turn to one of our regular attendees, Sang, to kind of focus in on what is the definition of things. But because as we were talking a little bit before we got started this morning, Jaloki, do you mind if I kind of use you as the definition setter this morning, which is when you see those words, survival strategies and serving, what comes to mind for you?
Thank you, Jamie. A lot of things come to mind. The first thing is okay. I'll think aloud, and I'll invite you in my thinking process. So I see a survival. Okay, I'm alive, so I guess I've survived. Strategy. Oh, okay. What is this? We'll may have to come back to that. So do my survival strategy still serve me? So the first thinking is, okay, I'm alive, so obviously they've served me. Oh, okay. What do we mean by serve? Does it mean I'm here and I'm breathing, or I'm here and I'm prosperous, or I'm here and I'm happy, I'm here and I'm growing, I'm here and I'm degenerating? All of that. And I mean, we can go in all kind of direction, but I would offer to say that maybe a major aspect of the human experience in this kind of a lifetime, actually, for me, is to be able to identify the survival strategies that have been useful in the past that are actually harming me right now,
Mm-hmm.
and to change them. And it's difficult, first, to identify them, second, to recognize that, okay, I've been doing that, it's because of the past, maybe it's because of my childhood, or because of something that happened this morning with the, someone at work, or something, or it's something that has been conditioned
Mm-hmm.
into me, and maybe it didn't even work in the past. There's a lot of wounds, I think. And I know I'm talking in generality here. We're going to get into the details. There are wounds that we have that maybe were not created by injuries in the past, they were a system that at the time, that's what we had to do to cope with reality. So in a sense, they were good, and now they're not serving anymore. They're not helpful. They're not good for me or for people around me. I'll just end this little rant right now to suggest, for me, obviously, our collective strategies as a race, I'm talking about humanity,
People.
are not working for us, are
Right.
not saving,
Right.
are not saving.
Well, and Jaloki, as always, you posted and spoke to so many of the salient issues in this particular type of discussion, right? Because you can't you begin to look at your childhood conditioning, you begin to look at experiences that you went through, some of which were pretty successful, right? One of the ones that I can use as a personal example is I was a fat kid growing up, right? So one of the things that I always tried to do was to compensate in some way, right? By making sure that if I was like I would always be the first person to tell a joke, right? So that the laughter, like I didn't want the attention to go on me. So I would develop a sense of self-deprecating humor that was a survival strategy at that time so that the focus wouldn't go on me. And similarly, if you were a smart kid sometimes and you wanted to fit in, you sometimes had to fit in and appear stupid. A number of women that I have spoken with over the years were always told, well, men don't like women who are too smart. So,
Mhm.
is there a way that you could sort of buffer that, intelligence factor in a way to make yourself more appealing to boys or to whatever? And you begin to find out that you're getting all of these coding messages, right? About who you are and how you have to conduct yourself in the world, and those become those survival strategies. So yes, there are collective strategies as well, and we'll also take a look at that. But I see you nodding, Ollie. Is that something that you know uh, that you can relate to, as far as survival strategies that you picked up at one time that were like, okay, I'm going to do this, but now you're kind of wondering, wait, do I still need to do this?
So first, thank you, Jamie, Ray, Joloki, and Pascal for being on stage. And thank you for your audience that is live on the replay to listening to us. It's really important also to witness your presence and that you can engage at any mean. And I will have a question later for you, Jamie, that you can reply later. But do you believe people, anyone who says that about women? I think I love women that are smart. It's there is a term sapio, SAPIO, which means that knows. And I think that that's really important. And of course, Joloki, thank you so much for opening the wall about the reflections. I was focusing my thoughts about serve, because serve means to be slave, to be of service. So servant, and it's from the Latin servus, and convey the act of rendering habitual obedience or owing allegiance. So it's about, I think, does our survival strategies serves us, are slave to us, or are we slave to them?
Yep,
That's really important, and that's
absolutely.
why I love so much this topic, because it's about awareness. Does da 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 still serves me right now? 10 years ago, it might be helpful, but right now, does it serves me? So I'm yielding the mic right now.
Okay. No, you're right in the moment with it. And that's the complexity, because when you start looking at your own personal behaviors, right? There are so many things that you have to look at, because, look, you can develop a successful strategy that was at one time, surviving something that still serves you today, the idea, but there may be ways in which you're behaving, going back to something that Jaloki said, where you're running a version of yourself which is no longer, not only not you, but it's incumbent upon other people to remind you, you don't have to do that anymore, right? I mean, Ray, I see you nodding on that one as well. What's alive for you on this topic this morning?
Well, I think everyone so far has shared some really interesting insights into, well, what is a strategy? What is um, survival, as well as whether it's still serving in service of something, us or the situation. Something I came across a few years back was that social norms and social processes have sort of become more complex, and the idea of we were conditioned, or we developed techniques or approaches to be comfortable in certain environments, um, were in very simple contexts situations.
Right.
Now we live in a very complex world where the context is shifting all the time. So does a particular technique still serve you or someone or the situation? Now is, I think, changing a lot, and as Yoloki mentioned, uh, from a humanity point of view, the process of being on this planet um, has become incredibly complex because situations have accelerated at the rate of change. So things that used to work don't work,
Hmm.
and have created a series of new problems that we haven't developed the survival strategy to do. So context, the term that I heard was transcontextual. Is what we're doing work across more than one context? And the some of these old strategies don't transfer or translate
Can,
into transcontextual.
can I dumb that down for a minute? Because I'm
Sure
I'm
can.
down here. So what you're saying is that it's like engaging with people in the comment section on the internet, right? In general discourse, if you heard somebody that you disagreed with, you might be able to have a realistic conversation with them that is a back and forth sort of thing. But a bad survival strategy, I don't think anything has ever been accomplished to change anyone's frame of mind by posting comments in a comment section in an online forum, right? And so, but yet somehow we feel compelled to do that. Now, I don't know if that's a survival strategy, but what I think you're trying to tell us is that, because our ways of communicating are so vastly different these days, right now we're daring to do something that is very different. We're actually talking with each other from global points, and we're daring to listen to each other and sort of let that conversation evolve. This is not a muscle that everyone uses these days, right? Because I'm going to go from my position to my position. It was a lot harder in the old days when you were going to write a letter to the newspaper to express your opinion, right? You had to wait days for it to get posted. You then had to realize, well, wait, people are going to publicly read this, and that's going to take a little while for people to react to. But now it's instantaneous. I can go up under the comment section of the internet and blow things up if I want to, right? And so if you're looking for comprehension and understanding, right? Um, your survival strategies are probably going to be really tested, right, in situations which are incendiary by nature, if that makes any sense. On the other hand, and I promise I will keep, because I don't want to keep this conversation so lofty that we can't deal with it on a tangible level. What concerns me is that we pick up these strategies. Like, one of the things that I don't do really well is I don't respond to texts, because I grew up in a world where I would actually pick up the telephone, and if I needed to have a conversation with somebody, I would. I know a lot of people, a lot of younger people, who are threatened by the fact that when someone calls, they have to instantaneously respond, right? But we're aware of all of those societal and tribal conflicts. What I'm just inviting us to consider is way down here, right? On this whole idea of being able to look at it where I can change some things, right? So what I wanted to be able to do with what Jaloki said is, what happens, Jaloki, when you observe me doing something? I know you work with a lot of clients, right? And you see me running patterns and behaviors about myself, and you can say, well, do you ever stop anybody and say, Jamie, I think is that really true for you now, or is that just something that you've been doing for a long time? Have you had an experience with that with a client or someone you've worked with?
With clients, with friends, with family, and with myself. You're bringing something here. Okay, so I want to come back to that. There's something I wanted to interject in response to what Ray said, and also to link the collective dimension of this conversation and the individual.
Okay.
One, and then I'll go back to I think I want to talk about identity.
Okay.
And the sense of identity, and the
That's
fact
good.
that our identities change over time, but we don't always recognize or accept that. And with different identity, well, I have to have different strategies. I am different, and the world is different. So bear with me. Going back, thousands of years, when we were living more or less in tribal ways, small communities, scattered around the globe. And Sang is here. Sang got power. Okay, I'll let her.
No, continue on, because
yeah.
and Pascal, I also want you to know that I didn't skip. Go right ahead, because I want to hear your response before Jaloki gets deep down the path.
Go ahead, Pascal.
Just come in my mind. It's that strategy for me. It's there are two kinds of strategy. There are conscious strategy and unconscious strategy, and it's for me it's not exactly the same. And someone said, "Oh, bad strategy or good strategy." I prefer the term of adapted or not adapted, because sometimes the strategy is adapted and sometimes it's no more adapted because the life change, you change. And for example, I was for a long time something very serious, very responsible, very chant. I don't know how you say in English, chant, but not funny person. Because I have to grow up my children, I have to earn money, I have to make a lot. But at that time, I think I forgot who I was really. Okay, you spoke about identity, but I think I forgot who I was. And now my strategy is quite different, to be more who I am really. And it's what's come in my mind during
No,
this.
and what you just said.
I prefer the term of survival strategy, adapted or not adapted, and more they are conscious, more it's easy to change them if you need to change them.
No, and one of the things I love about Sunday mornings, and welcome, Sang, by the way, we're delighted that you're here, is oftentimes there's a phrase that really springs up that takes, so I forgot who I was, is probably it was one of those things that when you've been through an experience and you've had this sort of understanding of what you went through, and it's both the positive, if you will, and the negative of that, right? All of a sudden, I found myself reacting and responding in a new way that was really fully functional, and I forgot who I was. You know what I mean? Wait, I'm not supposed to be the one.
It was at that time. It was useful to face the life, because the life was the I don't know what you say, was not comfortable. So it helps me to face the life. But now I think I can change my strategy to face the life.
And yeah, and then Jaloki said one thing, and I want to get Sang to chime in here in a second. But you were talking about identity, Jaloki. You were beginning, and you said identity's changing over time. And one of the things that I think a lot of people are very unconscious of, to build on something Pascal said, because it's the conscious things and unconscious things. I'm not so sure everybody that we come into contact with on a daily basis believes that their identity changes over time. I believe that there are people who think that their identity cannot change, that they were born one way and they have to stay that way. And if they don't stay that way, then somehow they're being disingenuous to themselves. And so they're, you know, we take for granted as people who have been having conversations about growth and change and whatever, and that we welcome this whole idea of our identities changing over time. But I still think that there are a lot of people, and I see Sang nodding, and I don't know if this is the entry point you wanted to make to this conversation, Sang. So please feel free to use this as the jumping on point or take us somewhere else before we get back to Jaloki. How do you
No,
respond to that?
I totally agree, because I feel like there are a few people that I can think of right now who will, if I'm having a conversation with them and just trying to like get some depth, they're like, that's just the way I am. It's just the way I am. And I'm like, you do know you have the power to change. Nope, it's just the way I am. I've always been that way. I'm never going to change. And it's like, okay. And then I think one of the most powerful questions I asked that specific person was, what have you learned about yourself over the since, you know, in your life, since you became an adult? The answer was, nothing. So I was like, okay, makes sense. So yeah, carry on.
No. Well, let's see if we can slip back into Jaloki, because he was right before you arrived. He was going to share with us some wonderful Jaloki wisdom. So let's go back to that whole idea of Jaloki, what you're talking about, identities changing over time, and incorporate some of the things that you've been hearing. Can you continue?
So Jamie, one of my former identities included when someone flatters me, there's something suspicious. You know, what does he want from me? Anyway, so yeah, okay, maybe I'm gonna go a little bit in all kind of a scattered direction, but I think there's a connection, there's a link between everything that is being said so far. When we lived in small little clans or tribes, you know, so it's just a few families, and I'm talking thousands of years ago, and most of the time, whether we're nomadic or stationary, we don't often meet other humans. And so when we do meet other humans, we don't know if they're friendly or foes. Okay, so the first thing for survival is we have to be ready to fight and maybe kill them so that they don't kill us. And then maybe okay, we can be friends. But the first thing is I don't know. Okay, so beware, and particularly as a man, you know, the male kind of a the amygdala brain is okay, you know, you don't touch my wife, you don't touch my children, you know, you have to go through me first, and I'm going to knock you down. So it's a survival strategy. And then, you know, we created bigger and bigger communities, etc., until we created nations. And now we tell ourselves, you know, I'm American, I'm French, I'm Belgian, I'm Korean, I'm Haitian. And so if I'm American, I have to defend America against, I don't know, North Korea, okay? And so we go to war. And that does not work anymore. It's gonna kill us. Everyone is gonna you know, die in this. I think we need to, and I'm gonna go back to the individual aspect of this. We need to start thinking beyond borders, beyond national identities. You know, start thinking like, okay, we're humans. We're very different. We have different cultures, different languages, which different. We don't experience the world the same way, but we're together, which is different from what it was before. We need new survival strategies that don't involve killing machines. Okay, why do I say it's connected with? And I'll be brief.
No?
Connected with with the individual aspect of that is fear, because survival is, and it's normal. You know, the survival instinct. Personally, I can talk about myself. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm always looking forward to be beyond this limitation of this. I've experienced what it is. That's another conversation, but I kind of know what it feels when you're not in your body, and it's really great. It's really good. So I'm not afraid of dying, but my body, all my self is against the process of dying. Whatever is trying to kill me, I'm I'm gonna react, and maybe violently. So there's a fear that is in, imprinted in me, that is useful. It serves me because it keeps me alive. But when that fear creates things that actually ultimately go against my survival, I need to check that and I need to change that.
And you have just entered the realm of conscious awareness by doing that. It's that
Woohoo!
recognition of conditioned behavior. And then all of a sudden, there's that wonderful 5-letter word. Did I get it right? Choice, right? The ability to choose is that 6. Sorry. Thank you, Sang, for counting. I knew that I'd have to get that wrong. But, that's why you have really good friends who back you up and keep you human in these moments. So, yeah, Ollie, you had something that you wanted to say, chiming in.
In
Yeah.
French, it's 5 words. It's choix.
That's it. That's what I was going to say. It's choix in French. So it depends on the language. I love so much, and I will be short and sweet. But I'm really happy about Pascal Shares and Sang and Joloki, because it's about, we are billions of cells. We are inhabiting a vehicle, a body, billions of cells, and we are 8.3 billion of people. And of course, the survival mechanism in Thailand is not the surviving mechanism in US or in Belgium. I never had to encounter a gun. So my approach in Belgium might not be the approach in US. But I will say it's about the amygdala. I'm going to make some bridges. And what I love about Pascal Scher was about the survival strategies that we are aware, or that we are unconsciously producing. Like, for instance, for like an instant, I can choose to breathe. That's an intentional decision. But of course, I don't have to be aware about the millions of times where I'm breathing, because it's unconscious. But what I love, and I'm going to bring 2 use cases, because I love to explore. And of course, I can talk a lot. But the first use case is Zinedine Zidane in the World Cup, when he decided to headbutt someone. And the second use case is Will Smith, the most famous slap, when Will Smith was. And both are having a common ground, is about emotional. Like they were threatened, whatever it's about, talking about the sister of Zinedine Zidane or the wife of Will Smith, and they were acting without reflection. And so that was a survival strategy, even if it was a bit stupid. But this is the only way that they found to express themselves. So that's my share. Thank you.
Yeah, and Ollie, you continue to elicit all of those ways in which something about a discussion of survival strategy exists. It exists on all these levels. It exists on the personal level, right? The mutative, creative way in which I live my life. It exists, as Joloki was talking about, on the tribal level, right? It also, this also, you get role clarity here. What's a woman supposed to do? What's a man supposed to do? And then you can take it to the macro, the collective, and go. I was with a friend of mine who is Asian. Who was making this comment. Well, that person's Japanese, so they're really not necessarily very welcoming of other people's cultures, right? And so and this man was Korean, right? And so you get all of that. Well, like, wait a second, is that some kind of survival strategy that the Koreans and the Japanese had to sort of enact, that got passed down to you, that it becomes a judgment about, how Japanese and Korean people can be? Because when we look at unpacking, again, it's tough enough sometimes to deal with our own behaviors, right? And then we have to be able to kind of factor in what were those cultural things that we had. And, it's almost as if it requires us to kind of, look at not only our thoughts, but the different aspects of self that we are. Sang is female, She's also Asian. She's also Midwestern. She grew up in Texas. She's got all these little, like at any moment, you could pop on all of these hats as to, can you speak a little bit more about that? When, our identities change over time, right? And it's like, well, you no longer need to be that Texas girl if you don't want to, but maybe you do. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I love that you said that, because that's literally what I was thinking, because it's the labels that society puts on us. It's the labels that we become indirectly. Like, I became a sister. I didn't ask to become a sister. I became a sister, right? So now I'm a sister. So what does that look like? And I think as I got older for myself, I just let society put whatever label they wanted. I got to choose whatever label I wanted, right? And I think when I share, one, it's most of the times it's very clear that I'm Asian. Sometimes it's not. And then giving people a little bit of background, they go, oh, well, that's weird, right? Because then it's like, well, that's a whole different being. And because then I go, oh, not only was I Asian in Texas, in a small town in East Texas, I played basketball, right? Then I became a single mom to have, Black children, right? So now I'm raising quarter Asian, a quarter white, and half Black children. And I'm like, what do I do? Right? How do I do this? Now, immersing yourself as a Asian woman into any culture is very tricky. Right? Because as my kids, I didn't grow up around African Americans, didn't grow around at all. And so my exposure to that was, to anybody other than my family and pretty much white people, there was nothing, right? I had little access to TV. So then my perception of the world was very tainted, so to speak. So when it came time to go out into the world, and like Jaliki was saying, you have culture, you have upbringing, you have all these things that create you who you are. But then when you get out there, who teaches you to talk to people, to measure people? Are you really giving me a compliment? Are you giving me a compliment because you want something from me? Are people just genuinely nice? Right? Because it would be a thing. And I actually thought about this yesterday. Somebody did something very odd to me as a grown-up. And it was, here, you can have this, but give me a kiss on the cheek. It was like, no, thank you. Right? And it was very weird. And I thought about it as when we were children, where our parents would be like, go give them a hug, and you'd have to force hug somebody. Or I remember my dad. I was forced to kiss my dad on the cheek. And I think that was a nice little trigger yesterday. All right? Because I was like, so I can get something, I have to kiss you on the cheek? Like, this is weird. Like, as a child, you're just like, you're taught this is what you do. So as a grown-up, and being a woman, right? If a man says, do this, and I'll get you that, think about that, right? Because that's how women are taught. That's how, I don't know about men, but I know was that. And so when you think about the things that we're taught as children, and the things that carry on into our own lives as adults, when we're thinking, are they being nice to me? Like, there were people that were nice to me because they had to be nice to me, even though I was the oddball Asian kid with scars on her face, growing up in a little small town in Texas, right? The visible of what they could see was much more easier to judge and to put down, and to be able to survive in a world of humans who you don't know if they're being kind, or if they truly want to help you, or if there's ulterior motives, is very challenging. I know it was for me.
Yeah, one of the things you so again, all of you are illuminating all of these different aspects to what I thought was going to be a very simple conversation about survival strategies. Because it what I hear you saying is that same sort of observation part of it, right, which is beginning to even question it, beginning to even question that, wait, is this right? And one, I love questions that can kind of unlock some things. And one of the questions that it talks about with survival strategies, I think, is the following question: is that true? Is it true that I need to kiss my grandma or do whatever? I mean, or was that just something that somebody handed me to? It's being able to ask yourself, is that true? Is that relevant? And is that necessary for me to continue? And again, where are we at when we do that? We're back here at the Rise and Shine's most popular place to be, which is in the pause, right? We have to kind of pause and do that reflection. So, Ray, I haven't heard you reflect anything in a while, so I'm going to pause.
Well, I was processing what Sang was sharing and what Yoloki and the others is. It's all about sense making. What does it mean if I'm asked to do X? Is there an ulterior motive? So what is the meaning of the request, the question, the action? And it's not always the same. And Sang said it so well, is as a child, you were asked to do a kiss on the cheek. As an adult, when you're asked to do the same thing, what's the meaning of it? Or why do I even need to consider it? So sense making, I think, attached to survival strategy. And what is a strategy? A strategy is an approach to function or be safe within a certain environment. Is what's something that will get you through it. So sense making, I think, is something you're not taught. You have to learn and make your own meaning from it. And Ollie's got something he wants to share.
Yeah, pop in, Ollie.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really enriched by these kind of sessions and shares. So thank you again, Jamie, and everyone for sharing that. Yeah, in social convention, like there was an experiment, and I'm going to be short with that, but actors were playing to stand up when there was a bell ringing. And then actors were out because it was like a psychiatrist queue waiting room. And then all the actors that were doing that were out. But the people that were behind were not knowing about that. And each time a bell was ringing, they were standing up, and then because they were reproducing what the others was doing. So social convention, by instance, historically what is the meaning of shaking hands? Is because in the Middle Age also there was potentially a dagger hidden in the trouser, and then shaking hands will ensure that there is no dagger hidden. So all these kind of things that we do right now had a meaning in the history. They don't mean anything from me now, and I know that people are connecting truly by shaking hands, but I don't like shaking hands, so just a Prince salute is enough for me to say hello. But it's really interesting to dive into the culture also, because this doesn't mean always yes in certain parts of the world. So there are some things to explore. Thank you so much, and I'm yielding the mic to Sang.
Before I pop back to you, Sang, I just want to check in. The survival strategies were something that you did in order to feel another word that we haven't talked about, which was safe, or sometimes okay, or sometimes accepted, right? And I think that those are those survival strategies. I want to step away from survival strategies, where like my dog sometimes eats really quickly because, dogs will eat in that animal brain because they're afraid that some other animal is going to come over and take their food. I'm aware that in the amygdala, because there are people who are far more brain savvy than I am, there are certain functions like Joloki, you were keying in on. I'm going to defend, I'm going to fight, right? But what I'm inviting us to kind of continue to sort of dance with a little bit is those things in which we perceived whether or not it was safe, right? Whether or not we were okay and whether or not we would be accepted. So does that fit in with some of the things you were going to bring up, Sang?
Yes. And what I was going to share is sometimes I think becoming aware of when you're making survival decisions, when you're no longer in survival environment, right? And what I mean by that is when I realized that I had not known what love and safety was since I was 3, having to go back and go, all the decisions I made and having to unlearn my body because meaning I had to, it wasn't, this is where it gets tricky for me, is even though I wasn't physically threatened or whatever, the threat of people is what it was for me. And so having to have that distinction that Yoloki talked about is whether or not someone's being genuine or not, and having that trust within self. Because I know for myself, when people start asking me questions, when I have a problem or I'm trying to solve a problem, they will just start asking me, just bing, 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 throwing questions. And then I feel like I have to go into defense mode. I feel like I have to defend my decision. And I feel like I have to defend my decision because it's my decision and it's my survival. And I'm not open to what they have to say. So then when someone comes along and says it and I go, and then it sits with me and it sits with me and sits with me, I go, okay, something's there. Let me address that. And then I go, is that an old pattern? Again, the pause and that self-awareness, because there are decisions that I've been making even in the last several months where I know I'm at this, I came up with something yesterday. I was telling my friend, she asked me how I was doing. I said, well, I'm in a very interesting becoming threshold. And because there's like, I'm shedding these old thoughts, these old societal norms that have been in my head. And while being able to create and be in this new space of what does life look like while I'm not making daily survival decisions in everything, whether it's how I drive, whether it's I don't want to park in a certain parking spot because, X, Y, and Z, like whatever that is, how am I making money decisions? All of those things have, for me, calculated into, am I making a decision that feels good and safe for me now?
Absolutely. And your friend just exemplified, going back to where we started this conversation, Jaloki, that's where the still serving you lives, which is when Sang's friend moved from survival mode into becoming mode, right? That was where, in my opinion, that inflection point lives when she's able to say, that way is not serving me anymore. It's a personal empowerment. Look, there are survival strategies that are going to be, incumbent within you, whether those are the primal way in which your brain works or, but that beautiful point where I saw everybody smile when she was talking about your friend being in the becoming mode, right? Where that flip happens is in that inflection point where that survival strategy is let go of. There's been a pause and there is this recognition that, wait, I don't have to do this. What else is possible in this moment for me? Is this, and Pascal, I'm coming back to you just because this is your first, please speak, share.
Yes. One thing that is coming in my mind is this strategy were useful when they were here, and not forget that they were useful, and to be kind with us when we want to change, and not say, "Oh, we were wrong, it was bad strategy." Just keep it cool with us, with the past, and when we use this strategy, because they were useful at that time, and now we change the direction, and because very often we say, "Oh, I was bad, I was not okay," but just keeping cool with where we were at that time, because at that time, if we use it, it's because it was useful. It just was sorry for my English, but it was
No.
just what
One of the things that this show stands for is the fact that meaning and communication can happen regardless, even that we may be all speaking English, as Ray will share with us on many times, we still don't know what we mean when we use the same English word, right? And so what we're doing together is
when it's not clear, when it's not clear, you ask me and I ask Jaloki and it translates.
Okay, Jaloki, let's do that right now. Jaloki, translate everything that we've been talking about and make sense of it.
What does it
all right?
mean? What does it mean?
What does it mean? Oh, you're muted. Jaloki, you're muted.
Sorry, I muted myself earlier. Thank you. In one of my parallel lives, I've been doing a lot of linguistic and cultural translation, and I've come to the point that, well, just as you're saying, Jamie, a lot of things, if not most things, can actually not be translated. You can approximate, you can try to find something in the different language or culture to say, okay, it's somewhat so close to, but it's not exactly the same, because there are concepts, and that is connected with the experience of survival of that particular person or group or nation, which, as Oli was saying, is different from one of the other. I'm gonna okay.
But what was it clear what I said? Just
not only it was clear to me, but I was going to actually build on that, because and bear with me, okay?
You have the floor, my friend. Go.
Verbalizing as it's coming into my mind, and it's not completely clear yet. What you said, Pascal, that inspired me, it's about healing, and so at some point I was doing something that it was what I could do, and it was, maybe I had another choice, but I didn't know, or I made the choice, okay, and now I decide to do something else. But there's something paradoxical in the human experience, is that when you change something in yourself, when you want to change something in yourself, first you have to accept it. If you don't accept what you're trying to change, and you try to fight it, it's going to reinforce, because it's going to fight back. so first, and it's paradoxical.
You have to accept that it was the best things before.
Exactly.
Without judgment.
Absolutely. And so I have to congratulate myself and forgive myself and thank myself for doing or being who I was, or what I was doing, and now have this particular, it's Zen. It's and I don't want to go too far into the Zen, because just a parenthesis, a Zen master would ask you, who is I? And that's a whole lot. Is there an I? So I'll close the parenthesis. but the Zen approach here is, okay, I want to be calmer. I want to be more compassionate. I want to be less aggressive. I want to be less violent. But first, in order to be that, I have to accept that right now I'm aggressive, I'm compassionate, and this is me, and it's fine. And this will allow me to change myself easier and faster than actually telling myself, oh, this is wrong. It's paradoxical, but that's reality.
And you are aware, however, there is a deep tribal conditioning to declaring things wrong and bad, and isolating that part as it's not us, that didn't happen. One of the things I love about in Germany, they said, as it relates to the Holocaust, when they introduce it, they say, we did this. Mm-hmm. We did this. Mm-hmm. There wasn't some outside collective that sort of had it, I want you to continue, Jaloki, but I want to interject, because that there's a Western tendency to throw out the trash, right? And to see it as, oh, that was an aberration. I'm going to put someone in prison. I'm going to like not I'm going to try to shut off that part of myself. You know what I mean? As opposed to bringing it back and saying, you know what? There is that shadow self. I am that part. I am that, you know what I mean? And in order to embrace that part, I have to do the healing work of forgiveness, right? Whatever that healing journey is for you. But again, I don't want to bogart this moment, but I don't want people to miss the fact that what you're talking about is a hero's journey in and of itself, right? The ability to not cut off parts of yourself and say, well, gosh, I was a stupid, idiotic fool that blah, 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 blah. I mean, you can say you made mistakes, but the minute that you turn that as an aspect of yourself as ugly and bad and wrong, you're just going to do what you said at the beginning of this, Jaloki, and you're going to carry that with you for a long time. Please continue.
And thank you. And I know, Oli, you raised your hand. I'll give it to you just in a minute. Thank you, Jamie. You actually continued in the way I was going to continue. So I'm going to pick up on
Okay.
what you said, and bring, you know, for me, healing often comes with a change of identity, because I'm this way today. Tomorrow I'm gonna be healed. I'm gonna be different. And when I change my identity, then my worldview needs to change too. Then my belief needs to change too. Then my paradigm needs to change too. And that's very hard. And just quickly here to kind of not close the loop, but reconnect with the loop about the subconscious and conscious that Pascal mentioned, and the collective. I think there's a big collective subconscious paradigm, and I say, I'll explain what I say. It's subconscious. It's not exactly subconscious individually, that I would love to see coming out to the conscious. It's modern science. Modern science in the conscious, modern Western science, in the conscious paradigm, is materialistic. You know, this, the body is matter, this nature, this is how it, you know, physics, geometry, you know, astronomy, etc. That's what, even the atoms, etc. That's what we all, you know, we're conditioned to. This is the truth. Science is not there anymore. Science is way, way, way beyond that, way beyond quantum physics. Science now is about energies, is about spirit, I mean, military right now are being funded billions of dollars to harness the capacity of the human that are meta material. So in a sense, this is unconscious. Okay, this is a new identity. For some reason, I don't exactly know why, it's kept almost secret, but we desperately need it to heal and to become aware of the new collective identity that we are. So right now I'm talking to scientists, at least scientists who are not under the control of the powers that be, that are harnessing billions of dollars. Don't be afraid of giving us, of talking and you know, rendering public this new advanced science, which for me connect with the old age shamanism.
So I'm going to invite us all to kind of take a breath with all of that and to just be with that for a second. Because what you're talking about is the presence of all of that idea of strategies and way in which we choose to live our lives, right? Exists on this very, very simple, intimate, personal level. And it also expresses in this huge way on this macro level, right? And I want to make sure that we I don't want to increase anyone's overwhelm, right? But I also, because that is the, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, which is, understanding the contribution of your personal energy, right? What is the energy you choose to be in the world, correct? And part of the potency of having these type of conversations is that you unwrap and you tap into all of these other threads, right? And I can see Ali responds to these threads in a really strong sort of way as well. And I'm so deeply appreciative of the depth in which these type of conversations can go, because one of the things that you just said is healing comes with a change of identity, right? That was one of the things that you were talking about, Jaloki. And I think when we're talking about examining your survival strategies on an individual level, you are going to change your identity. And in order to heal that in a way that is a moment of becoming, like Sang's friend was talking about, you're looking about the things that Pascal was inviting us, of recognizing that there are adaptive and non-adaptive things that have happened to you. Like some of these things that you did just out of response to it, but some of them were non-adaptive. They just happened and they got stuck. And we are aware, we can see their impact in the real world, but it really kind of all begins, and I can kind of see Sang kind of walking this little kind of wrap up journey with me, is it begins with recognizing there's a space between your survival mode and your becoming mode, right? And whether or not choice has 5 letters or 6, depending upon the language that you use, the choice then is that inflection point, right? Where, can you speak more? I can see you nodding. So I know you're probably going to make this much more eloquent than I am, Sang.
I'm going to do my best. I know Ray's going to help me out with this one though. So one of my friends, I called him one day last week and I was like, dude, nothing is making sense right now. Everything is confusing. Like, I feel like I'm so stuck. And he was like, yeah, because you are. Right. And I said, okay. And so that's when he said, there's that circle. If you look at, when you have a circle over here and you have a circle over here and they overlap in the middle, Ray knows what it's called.
The Venn.
There it is. See? And so he said, you're at that part that's in the middle, right? Where they overlap, because you have all these things that are happening and your thoughts and maybe the questions you ask and the people you hang out with or whatever. And then you have this direction that you want to go, and this is where you want to go, and you're stuck. And really what you're trying to do is make that into one, right? So it's like thinking about the comfort zone. I remember this from a training from Stephen Covey training a long time ago. In order to expand that comfort zone, we step out and we step back in. And we step out and we step back in. And the more we step out, the more your comfort zone gets bigger, right? There's a nice bumblebee flying around me. So if I get stung, you know what happened. So I'm at that spot, right? And understanding that you're at that spot and you're going to have those days. I think that's the other part, is people don't prepare you for what happens when you're going through those things, because society says, fix it now, right? You have to have an answer. And people hate it when I'm like, yeah, I don't know yet. I was like, what do you mean you don't know? I don't know yet, right? And I have only probably in the last couple of years been more vocal about me being firm in my own decision making. Like, this is my choice. I understand. I'm open to hear. And I think that's how you help decide how you're going to expand that comfort zone. It's very challenging, but definitely, again, back to the pause, reflect, and honest questions to yourself. Because something I heard this morning is there are very few doors that you can walk through that you can walk back out of, right? So you want to make sure that you can always walk in a door and always walk out, but there's very few that you can't come back out of. But you just gotta know what that looks like for you.
And so you're inviting us to the dance. As we bring ourselves to the end of this hour, I want to say to those of you who are watching on YouTube, if you want to dive in, well, we wrap up this conversation. You can go to rsslive.org, rsslive.org. If you want to just pop into the room, we're going to be thanking the folks from the Breakthrough Show Network for allowing, and I'll get to you in just a second, Ali. We're going to be thanking the people at the Breakthrough Show Network for allowing us to sort of put this conversation out as a beacon to the world. But I will give you the opportunity, Ali, to say, what is it that we can leave people with who are seeing this beacon? What are those wonderful words that you might be able to leave those folks with?
Well, thank you first, Jamie and Ray, for creating this space. I love this space because it's a space that is not in my space, it's not in your space, but it's a space where we can go through to envision the bright future. And I'm going to say two more words. There is a word from Maya Angelou, I'm a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me. That's a powerful video to explore. But also that the river might be the same across the days and the years, but each day the water is different. So what I like to make me aware and make us aware, in fact, is to realize that identity is always evolving. We are facing birth and deaths of our inner selves each and every moment. And it's to realize that it's not saying, oh, I am stupid, or oh, I am amazing. But in that particular moment, I have incredible thoughts, or at that particular moment, I have blame that I'm blaming myself. So it's really to detach the identity from the fact of an event, because if we attach few seconds of an emotion or a thought to a whole life, that's really, I think it's in ignorance. But that's my share. Thank you.
No, it's a beautiful way to sort of end our time in our broadcast today. And just like Ali was saying that, you know, the river will return next Sunday at the same time on the Breakthrough Show Network. But there will always be something different in the currents, right? But the river remains, the idea that we're committed to having this conversation. And we invite you to return with us next Sunday when we do that. Or as I've said, if you want to join us afterwards or beforehand, you can come pop in our room here at rsslive.org. Until next week, continue emerging, and thank you for watching our beacon on the Breakthrough Show Network.